Hey everybody, welcome to episode 142 of Tactical Crouch. Yiska, Volamel, Kickedtripod here. That's not why you're here though. You're here for the one, the only, the man with the plan. Awesome, dude. I love your beanie, by the way. It's sick. I'm all about it. EU Contenders caster, all around good dude. It's Tridd. Welcome to the show, Tridd, and hi.
Hi, thanks for the intro. I'm not really a guy who usually has a plan, so you've already led to your audience, but thank you for the introduction nonetheless.
You plan to be dressed in front of a camera in time for the show to start recording, so there's something there, right?
All right, yeah, a little bit of preparation. Okay, I can't deny that. So yeah, I mean, if you have to plan that hard to be dressed, though, I feel like there's something slightly wrong with yourself anyway.
Yiska's right here, dude. You don't have to like talk about him like that.
Yeah,
he's on time. He's dressed. He looks presentable. Clearly,
not
a
on
man
time.
with a plan.
Yeah, that's
50-50 undressed.
He's not wearing pants. Let's face it, chat. Come on.
Neither am I. Who's complaining? Who's counting? Huh?
I mean, to be fair, like, are you guys all doing like the COVID tuxedo where you have like a decent shirt on top and then it's just like gym shorts underneath, or like I've got these American Giant sweatpants on that are
I got some Under Armours. I think the crowning jewel is the slippers, though. These are quite.
Oh wow, how bougie!
Quite comfy,
Whoa.
really soft sole, quite thick. They're keeping my feet warm and in comfort all day. So that's really the crowning jewel of the lower half of this tuxedo.
That's not what I've heard. Those are the Yeezys of slippers. And I love them. So
the Yeezys of slippers. I think.
Some people think that it's
surely there are Yeezys, right? Surely there are Yeezys that are slipper-like, right? Yeezys are basically slippers at this point.
Right? Yes, Yeezys are 50% slippers and 50% Crocs, depending on if you're getting the boost or not.
100% overpriced.
Wow.
See, we were having a conversation about this literally the other day about how you would be a good like shoe head. Like you'd enjoy shoe culture because there is resale value.
Yiska, you're right. That actually is Yiska.
Yes.
He only judges it because that's not a part of where he is right now.
Hey, I've profited off a sneaker game this year. Not a lot. When I've dabbled, I've got some money out
we're
of
in
it,
the green,
so
boys.
I'm not going to complain.
Katie and I, so I think I've said this on the show before, but Katie works for a company that is very into, as you kind of climb up a little bit, is very like sneaker game is kind of like status in there. And so, I mean, and esports is kind of the same, right? Like esports and gaming, like there's definitely that too. So like I have 2 pairs of shoes that I probably wouldn't buy if I wasn't in esports and gaming. It's just like, we'll write that one off. And
these are my fancy shoes.
Yeah, exactly. They're my conversations.
These are my convention shoes.
My conversations.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, conventioners. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yiska's proud of you.
But yeah, so all about the shoe game. Chat, thanks for being here. Sorry we're a little slow to get started. If you're new here, welcome to the show. If you like the show, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. We record twice every week, bringing you free content. We love bringing you that. But if you're like, hey, you know what? I want to support. I'm throwing $1 your way, $5 your way, whatever. Go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Otherwise, you can also leave a sub right here at twitch.tv/Kickedtripod. You get a free sub if you are an Amazon Prime member. Just link your Amazon account to your Twitch account. Boom, dan, boom, ding, done. That's it. Big thanks to our patron producers: Refine Bean, Ferdino, Pin, Battlecrab, Coochie Kopi, Lotion, Rex Zane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Shara, Picasso, Nathan Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Steven, Roger B, Owen, Chris R34444, Horbjorn. I listen to this podcast whilst on the toilet and in the shower thinking of Yiska and Peace Camper. Woo. Thanks
What a
again.
name to finish that off.
They're a wild bunch, those patrons. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to actually just kind of dive right into the show. And we're going to do that by talking about some of the free agency things. And what we're actually going to do is talk about the roster change that happened just minutes, it felt like, before we started recording the show. And that was the Houston Outlaws have a brand new GM.
Right.
It is none other than Cool Matt 69 coming in here. Started at Zarya Specialist. Now he's here. What a turnaround. Talk about climbing the ladder. You avoid hero pools completely, and now you sign the checks. Not bad.
Sign the checks of someone else's money. That's the most important part. You get to be the account keeper of some venture capitalist's money. It's absolutely amazing. And there's so much potential. There's so much cool Matt can do with this team. Mainly because I think you should just gut the current one with a machete and start from scratch. So there's a lot to be done here. I wonder if Cool Matt is the person to do it, though. That's the thing I'm
There would be nothing
about.
That would tickle me more than to know that Cool Matt has just played the long con. You know, he was red, that was sussing, you know, reactor that didn't show up, and he's just got his team from the inside out after playing with them for, you know, X number of years individually and outside of that. Like, it's kind of funny to think about because they have already kind of like done this massive upheaval. There's some question marks still around certain pieces, but this off season has been ruthless, and Houston is going to look different for it. Hearing good things about Cool Matt, yeah, 100%. They have to. Like, 2 years of this is not good, and then adding a third. What are you gonna do? Something has to change, and they're changing it, which is good. You know, I'm putting Junkbuck in the front office. You know, with Harsha as co-head coach. That's, you know, good. And then Cool Matt hearing good things from, you know, other experts, so willing to give them a shot. Interested to hear, you know, and see what 2021 looks like for the Outlaws.
And he comes from he came from being a logistics manager for this past season. Started in January, went from player to logistics manager. I honestly didn't hear a whole lot about that. But I've chatted with some Houston Outlaws peeps over the past season, and as far as any issues were concerned, logistics, as far as I could tell, were not one of them. So,
well, first of all, you got to think about this. Is like that role was going to be a lot more intensive at the start of the year because you were having to transport a lot of players, potentially equipment, potentially all this stuff to multiple locations throughout the year. I feel as though he was one of the only people this year who won big. His job just suddenly got a hell of a lot easier as a logistics manager because what is he moving? Honestly, what is he moving about this year?
Yeah.
I mean, so there is part of it, right? You do have like player housing, which does get a little bit more complex. You do have signings get a little bit more complex if you are doing that. I don't think they did a whole lot. Like, I definitely don't want to diminish what Cool Matt may or may not have done, because a lot of it would be definitely behind the scenes, but clearly it was enough for him to get a look at the GM spot, right? And that's, you know, impressive in itself. I definitely have some questions. I don't see it really from the outside, but that is not also to say that he hasn't earned it, doesn't deserve it. It's just that where's the content? Outlaws, give me the content. I want to know why. I want to know how Cool Matt went from this guy on the team playing very specialized roles to a logistics manager, what felt like a glorified, like, yeah, they're a tank coach, player manager, you know, like one of those things where it's just like, here's 50K, sit down and shut up. And then now they're here at the GM spot. Like, I want to know what that process was.
The process was on a 2+1, and they had to do something with this contract to not take up a player slot.
Shut
I would
up.
think, right?
I mean, no, the GM slot is not that slot.
No, not for GM, for the logistics manager.
2+1.
Oh, for logistics manager. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not for logistics manager. He's not even talking about that. He's saying basically we signed him in 2018 on 2+1. You've got to pay those 2 years, so you move him into a back end role, so you're not wasting the funds. Cool Matt proves he's capable. He has a history in traditional employment, so it's all good. You then don't option the +1. Re-sign him officially as a general manager for 2020.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the reasoning behind keeping him around. And also then, of course, like showing that like a lot of stuff behind the scenes was managed by Cool Matt. Like, for instance, I talked to him about like having like an interview scheduled with someone, right? So I also think, and this is not to be underestimated, yes, we have former pro players as general managers in the scene. We do not have former Overwatch League players as GMs in this scene. And this is sort of like an interesting experiment. And also it makes a ton of sense that it would be Coolmat, because Coolmat being the oldest player ever in the league, it kind of makes sense, honestly. And also...
Just based on age?
I mean, age, drive, seniority, like having played this esports game for a while, because beforehand they were part of the Dead Game Gods, you know, like squad.
Still one of
that
my
just
favorite articles. Like,
yeah, was a great article.
Godforsaken game. Go look it up. Actually, chat. Do it.
Yeah,
I'll find it right now. Actually.
And like the idea there being like that this person has like solid work experience in different environments from different roles, also like has a solid head on his shoulder. So I kind of like this, and I also kind of like seeing this sort of as a field test, because down the line there are other players that need to find jobs somewhere, and if there's like a precedent set that, you know, like older people can, or players can transition to these roles, like I would say like to see someone like a Jay Hong get into these management positions down the line. Of course, like I'm not summoning a retirement here, but
he just came back. Come on, let me write my article and then he can retire again.
No, I need him for content, Yiska. I can't let him go just yet.
Think of the content.
Right. But yeah, I think that's quite an interesting set of circumstances there. And it can also open the door for more qualification. I'll also say the qualifications, a lot of people have gotten the general management position before, have been very iffy in the first place. So I feel like the qualifications that Coolmat has definitely stand out as more qualified than
certainly
other people, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
I love the precedent of players moving to the front office. I love it. I think it's worked well in traditional sports. I think it creates like a camaraderie and a solid link between the front office and the actual players and coaches there. Mm-hmm. I love that. It's just it's and to be fair, we're on season 4 now, right? We're only 3 seasons in. That feels relatively quick, and this is somebody who, you know, it went through it pretty quick. But we've also seen people who, you know, Anna Lynn, I think, is a great example of somebody who started as a social media specialist for Gladiators, moving into the actual GM role for Justice. And we've seen people, you know, she kind of took over as community, ended up really running Team USA for Overwatch World Cup. Was that 2019? 2018? I don't know. The
2019. Definitely 2019. I can't remember who had 2018, but it was definitely 2019.
Yeah.
It was Bolin.
So, you know, like there is this, and I think it's one of the beautiful things about esports a little bit, is a lot of it is just like, make your title. Like there's no like, you have to wait 3 years, do this, 1 year, do this, 4 years, do this, shake hands with so-and-so.
Yeah. There's a blessing and a curse. As someone who's had to look at recruitment within esports in like my full-time job to try and get staff over at Hot Drop, which is the agency I work at. It is great, like you said, that people can pick their titles, but what happens is like, you can put out a job advert for like, oh, we need someone who's been like +3 years in a marketing or social media role. And then you get people who apply who have done like 3+ years, but they handle a team's social media once a week for 3 years. It's very
Totally.
different, very different from being in a full-time social media manager role for 3 years. So it's great that there's such a ceiling for progression. And while it is frustrating to be on the other side of it, I advocate for people to like say you can do something and then quickly learn how to do it and try and keep up. Totally understand that, and I advocate for anyone to do that. But like, if you don't meet that standard, you are out and you've wasted a lot of people's time.
It
and
definitely,
hopefully, hopefully those people rise to the occasion. I want nothing more than for people to be able to progress quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't want people who are what's the best way? I'm going to say people who waste the opportunity to still be like circled around to different jobs just because they are better at selling themselves than they are at doing the job they're trying to say they can do.
Totally.
I can't think, or I can't think of, plus I also wouldn't name in this instance people I think who are doing that, but I genuinely can't think of people off the top of my head currently that immediately come to mind with that position. But like, that's just the caveat of like this whole like fast acceleration you can get in this industry, is that like sometimes it can be frustrating.
I mean, it just puts more emphasis on also having solid HR that just understand like how to vet people for abilities they claim to have, and just like actually take the time, or also be proactive and maybe do your own research and specifically go towards people that you think can do the job, rather than putting out an advert and casting the net wide, right? Like that's definitely a problem in but yeah, it's a plus and minus. I will also say that like a degree and or 3 years even working professionally in a specific position does not necessarily help you in esports. Like like the transitional properties between industries, like for instance, I would think like, I don't know, what's like doing marketing for even like a bigger brand and for an esports team is wildly different in the ways you need to approach it, right? Like because you ran the Coca-Cola account doesn't mean you can run the G2 esports account necessarily, right? That's completely different.
Not gonna stop them from trying.
No, they are going to keep trying. Everyone will try. The back end stuff they'd be absolutely great at, like the data and how to present it and like change and know where to pivot. They'd be great at the actual stuff you're putting to engage with the audience. That's where you struggle. The actual connecting is where you'd struggle.
It's a language. Like esports gaming is a language, and you know, like sugary soda drinks is not. You know, you can go from sugary soda drinks to bread for all I care, or fast food. Like you can do that. It's even harder. I almost wanted to say like you go to technology and do it, but there's definitely some aspects of it where it's harder to do that too. But gaming in itself is just like, you know, like I can guarantee you, I would Google right now is like top 10 gaming terms, and you see like noob. Like what else? You know, like what else do you see that you just don't like really use anymore? You know, it would take at least 3 months of watching XQC stream to even get a bearing on
But even that's just even that's like a niche at this point, because not everyone talks like XQC or his community. So
I mean, Tridd, you kind of talked about this like before the show, where it's just like, you know, oh, I see like the Tridd wide, so I know it's a vast chat. That's always been something that's kind of like really fascinating me about Twitch, where it's just like you can identify people because of their like separate like little almost like accents based on like the weird culture.
It is
really
like a dialect, the way people talk. Is like there's little like, I mean, it's not even like a subtle cue. It's just straight up an emote in their channel. I know the emote code. I can see it. I know why they're trying to trigger it. I know where it comes from. Like you can, like you said, it's like a tracer. You just know, like not the hero, but like you just know where it's coming from, right? I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep it back on Overwatch.
It's like some people's tracer.
Yeah. But no, I think with like circling all the way back to the point, Cool Matt is one of these people that I think is going to do like a really good job with the roster, provided he's willing to actually just rebuild and then not try and make don't know why you try and do this. Not try and make Outlaws 2.0, because like the Outlaws as a team, even for the past 2 years, in my opinion, has one of those teams I look at in the league and go, this team wasn't about competitive results. It was about selling jerseys. That's how I just viewed the Outlaws because of, well, their performance, but also the large personalities and following that they managed to pick up with the roster itself. I think if Coolmat wants to make a competitive team and they've got the checkbook and the will to do it, they can definitely fix it in this offseason.
I think the checkbook's a big one. I mean, we've been talking about it quite a bit offline in different circumstances, but, you know, there's some point where there's only so many packings in the entire world, right, who can build phenomenal rosters, where it doesn't feel like phenomenal rosters can be built unless you're willing to sign out. So I don't know what the Houston Outlaws are willing to put into this following season. I hope it's a lot because I want them to be as competitive as possible. But I think a really interesting question is, how good of a GM does Cool Matt and Junkbuck below him become when it comes down to finding talent that maybe is affordable?
I don't think it's Cool Matt's like primary job though. Please correct me if you're wrong with this one, but the way I always envisioned roster acquisitions is there's two competing sides of it, right? The coaches go, I want the best possible roster, give me these players. And it's Cool Matt's job to effectively balance the books and say, no, that's too expensive. No, we can't do this. No, because of that. So I think like the actual scouting and roster creation is really more on this new unified coaching staff, right?
I would imagine so. Obviously, GM in esports is like this nebulous, do they, don't they? What exactly are you doing? Like there are some like very obvious through lines that like GMs tend to do, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were certain GMs in the league that like very particularly build a coaching staff that either will pick what they want or picks what the roster is and then builds the coaches after. Like I wish it was the other way, like you're saying, where it's like the coaches are fighting for all the players that they want and they come first, and then, you know, the GM and the, you know, I don't know, the treasurer, you know, balances it that way. I wish it was like that. You can just say
Huck, by the way. That example about GMs with control, you can just say Huck. Like, we don't have to, he's not a boogeyman. We don't have to skirt around the name. Like,
I think you've got Huck for sure. You've got D-Pay.
Yeah, I think there's
D-Pay is another one. You've got,
that's different though, because he's head coach and GM. So like, that's slightly different.
I would put Albert in there, packing. You know, like I think that there are a few, and I think it's a legitimate, you know, like GM in role, in title, in other sports is kind of different, where, you know, like esports, or at least specifically Overwatch League, has kind of found this like amalgamation of like, how do we work together? What does that do that? How does that work from time to time when you're working on, you know, certain budgets and roster constraints? Like, I think that there is probably a little bit more of a marriage between a GM and a coaching staff than maybe there is in other esports.
Just depends on what
potential
Houston wants to do with it. Pretty much. Hopefully it's good. So far, so good with them. I don't know.
I'll also say it's kind of interesting. Like if you guys read like the little comments that the Outlaws always put on their rollouts, and like his one sentence is, it seems like the perfect moment to take our Western franchise to the next level and solidify its legacy as a team destined to win.
Very calculated, right? So like if you read it literally, it means that, hey, we might have one or two Koreans or Korean players on this roster, but we're going primarily Western. And I would say, based off of the Outlaws fan base so far and what people know of the Outlaws from a fan reception point of view, I think taking a team like the Outlaws and making them more Korean centric is a mistake. I think they have to stay Western focused anyway.
Yeah, I think the really like I don't think like fans really care like where someone is from as long as they can interact with them, right? Like I feel nobody would have a problem with OG probably. Like these players might as well be American, right? Like where you can just like it's about the connection, and it's also about establishing these connections. Like I always thought that teams can definitely do a better job in connecting teams to their fan base. And for instance, like I would point out Florida Mayhem here as a positive example. I feel like I get who these players are and these individuals just by Swing Chips tweets and like translations in the videos, right? So
I think there's like a spectrum to it though, right? Because like I think the worst possible way you can handle a completely Korean roster and try and put them to like a Western audience is like all the way down here. You've got Vancouver Titans who severely screwed the pooch on that one. Like they had like they had one of the most beloved Overwatch teams, and they somehow were not able to leverage that, and they treated the players reportedly terribly. And it caused a roster implosion. You lost one of the potentially strongest rosters you could have got. Then slightly over the spectrum, you got the London Spitfire, who haven't really mistreated their roster as far as I can tell. But as someone who's supposed to be from their home market, have I really connected with this roster? Have I really no, not really. There were some great efforts from you end up getting Stylosa involved, who, is peak British when it comes to this, and he did great when he was out there in LA making content with the teams and whatnot. But like you said, I think one of the best examples, or two best examples of this right now is, like you said, Swing Chip on Florida Mayhem's done a fantastic job. But then also I think Shock does it quite well, because they almost use their Western players to spearhead that conversation, and then almost use them as an entry point to the Korean players who are less connected at present. But I think there should be great investment in translators, and great investment in content obligations as well for players, which I know they probably don't. They'd rather spend their time practicing and competing. Yeah. You got to get the content out there.
100%.
I'll also say, maybe a little bit in defense of Spitfire, I feel like they made an effort, or it's definitely a difference in effort they made in season 1 with gesture,
oh, for sure.
Everyone remembers Get Out of My Pub, right? Those moments, right? I feel like there was a genuine connection built. They won the season. Them then go in a different way with the roster building. Gives up, there's something to go off where you could think, okay, for all we know, they win stage 1, they win the season, they kind of got these players connected to the audience, trying to find that connection there. And also did so with significant resource investment for buying out the KDP roster and the GC Busan roster. And they kind of felt like they didn't want to do that in season 2. And the question is why? And maybe we are overvaluing how important it is to build that. Maybe it's just true for their specific market. I've long felt that maybe it's more of maybe the UK market finds it more important to have players that they can that's from around there. Yeah. For reasons that we're not going to talk about it, but right?
It's very hypocritical of the UK though, and this is an argument which was used in defense of international players representing a UK team, is that the obviously the most widely watched sport in the UK is football or soccer for the Americans.
Right.
And what's the percentage of native born UK players that are superstars on these teams? It's not the majority. The majority are imported players, and still there's a huge connection to them. So I'm totally with you that you do not have to have that strong UK focus on a roster to have that connection. And these Premier League teams, it's not as if they're doing content and shoulder content and getting their players out there and doing stuff like that, but they don't need to, because you have the generation of viewers are people who are so ingrained into watching and supporting that team through almost inheritance from their upper generation. They don't need to get invested into the players because they're invested in the team. Now it's a different story. These are new franchises. These are completely new brands and teams that you need to invest in. And the best way to get people invested in that is through your greatest asset, which is your players. So it's most senses I agree with, dude, that UK people don't necessarily need the team to latch onto, but I think if you're building the franchise to have that legacy and start getting the people just invested in the organization, you do it through the players, and I think a lot of teams haven't done that yet.
And I think what probably stymied that big changeover, looking at season 2 in particular, is that season 1 victory. I don't know that, like, if season 1 doesn't go as it does and in history, that season 2 doesn't already start to look like, well, maybe we were thinking this. Maybe we splashed out a little too hard going into the inaugural season with buying the 2 arguably best South Korean teams, throwing together and, you know, trying our best, our damnedest to win 2018. I think to that point, success can be that translation of the players, and it doesn't necessarily translate the same things because it's not necessarily personality, but it's almost like a trust where it's like, I know you're a good player because you've brought us fantastic results. And I think that was kind of built, and now they're restructuring, resurfacing, you know, doing their EU rebuild, which we will undoubtedly get to.
I hope they find economic success with that approach, because I think it's also a little bit harder to monetize these European organizations than the NA ones.
Sure.
Just like by the focus of the league, by the viewer base that logically will be attracted to specific times, like how the time zones are set up, right? Like all of this kind of works a little bit against European orgs. And I think that therefore it is an uphill battle, but it's also an opportunity because you therefore can feed off like the entire continent in terms of like what you want to do for
market. Cheers.
So, and I also say, if I think about a region that has been like kind of undervalued and where it's most likely that unknown talent that you can get for like less resources, that would be Europe.
Good
right?
KSP. Samsung Morningstar is just jumping over. Well, I mean historically, but you get the gist.
So EU is like an untapped gold mine with this one, and I think you can, when you make the. So here's the thing, right? When Eternal got announced and we saw that roster, the first iteration of Eternal be announced, what did everyone say? Finally, a European team.
Yeah,
right.
The sentiment online wasn't that Spitfire was a true European team. So when Eternal comes out and goes, we're going full EU, right? They get heralded as the first European team. That was just because I feel like, especially in season 1, with the time zones, with the way things worked out, like EU was being starved from Overwatch League stuff, and they have got better over time with it. This season has been absolutely great for an EU fan. Like we got peak grand finals time. Like you guys over in America, you got screwed hard. But I agree. There's a lot of untapped potential in EU, but I do think it comes down to like where the focus of the league is primarily with the franchises, and how you monetize that is a bit of a deciding factor. But in terms of like players, I got this confirmed. It's not a hard thing to get confirmed, but like Path to Pro and Contenders tracks where players go and the import rates to Overwatch League, and without a doubt, the second most imported region, only just behind Korea, is Europe. Like the Europe absolutely dominates in terms of the player base within the Overwatch League in comparison to Korea, because they're the ones that are getting promoted up to Overwatch League or to academy teams, which they also track as like a resource over to America. So like EU talent is flowing through the system. It's just about how do we support that system and make sure that keeps going, and then eventually they get to the end of that path to pro.
Yeah, and it's the development, as I hope I'm reading, and you can definitely comment on this as well, Tridd. I feel like we're finally getting to that point, mostly for bad reasons because of the attrition of NA, but it feels like we usually, like the way for European top talent was play well in Europe, get on an American academy team, then OWL.
Amen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. The way
so now
the Lord intended it.
K-Kona, brother.
Yeah.
They can play 2 weeks on an North American Contenders team. They are then NA like talent, and then you guys get to claim them.
Yeah, we're boosters. What can we say? We get a lot of results quickly. You're welcome. world.
Yeah, some never come back though. Like some players never come back. They, even if they change organizations with NA, they don't move over there. They play on ping. They still stay in North America because there is still this perception, or at least my understanding from both players and community and whoever, that there is still that kind of like, well, Europe is tier 2.5, NA is tier 2, then tier 1 is Overwatch League.
Right.
And that was just cemented by the resource difference in the previous years of Contenders, where all the academy teams were in North America, all the money was in it, and academy teams effectively became pseudo benches for the OWL teams, because it became waiting rooms for players like Alarm, who they just, like Fusion were like, no, we are not letting go of you. You're going to play on our academy team, even if it kills you. And that kind of made North American Contenders become associated with success, both financially and performance-wise. So it did create almost this like sub-level in between OWL and Contenders, where people have to go there first. And there's still a little bit of that, but I agree, it's got so much better now at being a much clearer path of progression, because we are seeing players go directly from Europe to OWL organizations.
OWL's getting wise to the EU main support. You know, League of Legends, we had the EU mid. We have the EU main support in Overwatch. You know, welcome. You know, the narratives just shift a little bit, but they tend to stay the same.
I do feel like this feels like a cheap shot, but I do need to say people did celebrate the first year Paris Eternal for signing a mostly EU team, but I feel like they didn't hit critical mass until they signed 5 Korean players. Like,
no.
You know, they did it. Like, I mean, and part of it is because you do have Soon and Nico and FD God still, who are not only obviously European players, but phenomenal at what they do, or have huge followings. And so like that, I think that definitely really helps them in that. But it also is like, it is this weird thing, right? Where it's such an odd balance and almost unintuitive at points between, is it the best to field a winning roster and build a fan base that way, a la NYXL? Or is it best to build a town that can really make the local fan base happy, a la, you know, early Houston Outlaws, early Dallas Fuel, early Paris Eternal, or do both like the Paris Eternal did, and just like let's get them early and then switch them over to Korean.
What depends who wins from either of those selections, because I'm going to make it very simplistic, and I understand it's more complex than this because I don't think anyone has the true answer. But like if you have a performance heavy team, monetarily it is the players who benefit directly, because those I don't know the specifics of contracts. My assumption would be like most other esports organizations don't take a cut of the prize pool. Prize pool goes 100% to the players. So if you're winning and you're performing, you're going to generate more fans because people obviously want to support a team that wins. But the most of the direct benefit is going to go to the players. If you have a fan base orientated team, well, in a very simplistic view, more fans, more merch sales. I would assume that your merch sales directly correlate in some way to the payout you would get from the league, or your rev share. There's just an assumption. When it comes to homestands, your homestands are more likely to sell out because people don't have to travel as far, or if they do, they're going to go anyway because they're just wealthy and they've got money to spend. So very simplistically, very reductionist, it would make more sense for the organization to build a marketable team than a competitive team. That being said, no one wants to sit there and fucking lose. Sorry, first one, right?
Drink.
Like, covering the brand as well. I don't know how you monetize this show, so I don't want to flash sponsors.
Our patrons, they do not have allegiances to alcohol.
Yeah, shout out to patrons.
We're good.
No one
better not be
wants
Patron.
Yeah, Patron. But like, here's the problem, right? If you don't have a competitive team, your brand and your sentiment in the community doesn't become one of success. It becomes one of a meme, a la Boston Uprising. No one takes Boston seriously because they don't perform. So therefore, like, you'll get the Bostonians who will stand them, but who else will? You know, they're not endearing enough to be season 1 Shanghai Dragons. They're not competitive enough to kind of like give you false hope. They are the punching bag, and I feel for the players because they are now largely tainted. Someone, please, for the love of God, while we're on this, cut Myeonbong a check
Please.
get his buyout,
Preach.
save Byeonbong, move him to something, put him on another roster, save this man because he is losing his goddamn mind on this roster.
I'm.
Do you think that
Is it
it's,
so-
I mean, we're making changes, right? We've got Punk, we've got Jerry, Myeongbong,
Yeah.
Fusion, and Color Hacks left, right? We've let go quite a few of people there. We brought in Lori as the head coach. You're still not confident that Lori,
No.
a South Korean head coach, keeping Myeongbong and Jerry, and I think you probably, I don't know, Color Hacks and Fusions, I don't know.
I think Fusions, yes, because brand ties.
I think Color
Like
Hacks has
Fusions
really
is the franchise
strong-
player for me for Boston.
Yeah.
I agree, but I don't think Color Hacks is far behind in that.
No,
guess.
Fusions is the brat. Fusions
does-
on that team is the franchise player. He's the one with he's the custer. He's the one with the show. All right.
Yeah.
And
Which I will
I
be
mean, I
on
don't disagree,
Thursday.
but I think that there's
really?
a lot of people who stand Color Hacks
nice
in
plug.
Overwatch.
Nice plug.
I think that the Boston has as mean as it is to say, they do kind of attract an attaboy attitude where it's just like, oh, you guys are pretty bad. Like, I wish you'd be better. Like, I'm gonna cheer you when you win, good on you. But is it really the players and the coaches that we're worried about? Is that what is supposed to give me hope? We've had the same management for 3 years now. Not a ton of success.
You are gonna have to pry that position from Huck's cold
100%.
dead hands. Like,
I get it.
Yeah, I think you are more likely to see the Boston Uprising win the Overwatch League than you are to see Huck be
Sure.
removed without him choosing to go.
I
Interesting.
100% agree. I think it's going to be difficult. I would love to see them get ahead of that and say, like, we're doing things different. This is what we're going to do. I'd like more transparency on that front if they want this to change. If they want like the narrative around them to change, I think they have to get in front of it. I don't think they're going to, but that's kind of where I sit with this team, where it's like, you could do whatever you want to this roster. I somehow don't think it's going to work. The only times it did is when you had arguably the best coach we will probably ever see in this game managing your roster.
I'll straight up.
They chose to let him go. Ugh.
You mean Shake,
Constant
right?
fallouts.
You mean Shake
No.
and Gunba?
Do you mean mineral?
Gunba,
right?
I mean, Gunba, again, you have to put some credit on his name with
You
what
do,
he's
yeah.
doing. You
Absolutely.
got to
you
put
do.
some credit with him.
Yeah.
So again, another fantastic coach that has an eye, that has, a vision for things within 2 games now is gone. I do not have hope.
Guys, I'll still shoot you this one. I don't think there's any way that Boston Uprising finishes bottom 5 next season.
Huh? What do you know, huh? What do you know,
We'll
Yiska?
see. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We're gonna just
We'll
take
see.
a pause until Yiska speaks up because you can't be dishing that kind of shit on the show.
Well, okay. Let me lay out the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
What is Boston's problem?
A lot of things.
Can we? I have to figure
Do
out
we
what
have
I
enough
can
time?
say.
We're already like
no.
What can I say? Can I start
Fundamentally-
with the logo?
Uh-huh.
Or do we just
Fundamentally,
like go higher than
from
that?
season 1, okay? Like, yes, it was always uphill battles, but
Yeah.
what is the thing that Boston Uprising is known for?
Moneyball.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is another word for
Money. Lack of money.
Sabermetrics.
less
I
money.
don't-
Less money. Yes.
Yeah.
Less
Okay.
money.
Money in,
That's
money out.
funny. Okay, yeah.
I think a bunch of teams will be money ballier than the Uprising next season.
Sure. I agree. I think there are some teams that are going to do it better than them, like we saw the Valiant do.
There's not. I
Do
don't think there are 15 teams that will like
Yeah, no.
do that though. Like how many teams do we need to straight moneyball this that would finish below Boston
Wait,
Uprising?
what did I say? I said they are not going to.
Oh
finish
right,
bottom
okay.
5.
Oh, so you just
I
have to
didn't-
finish above bottom 5.
Yeah,
right?
so you're saying that there's
Yeah.
5
Okay.
other teams in Overwatch League that are going to try to out Moneyball
Right.
the Uprising.
And I think they can.
Judging by now, unless like there's like a sugar daddy coming into one of these other teams,
Maybe they've got a
ownership
pay
groups
peg. Who
change.
knows?
Yeah, and then maybe other teams will
Do you-
once again like start.
Do you have any inkling at what you think which franchises that might be?
Hurricane?
Yes, but
Sorry, wait, not
makes
Hurricane. I
sense,
mean
yeah.
Spitfire. I'm already giving away the. Oh, jeez. Spitfire will be one of the teams that try and Moneyball, I think,
Sure.
based off of the commentary we've seen so far. Very early days with what they're ready to announce, but I can definitely see that being one. Do you think Vancouver Titans do it again, Yiska? Are you saying that we're seeing Teen Titans 2.0 because they've kept half of them?
True.
yeah, that
Yeah,
in
so that's
itself
two.
also, yeah.
So
Let me-
Shredlock,
let me
Wolf,
also
and Dalton,
say
by
this.
the way, are the only
Yes.
3 left, I think, on
Those are the
contract.
3 that we've re-signed. Yeah.
There is another thing, another
Leave.
factor that
Interesting, Joe.
cannot be
Slip.
underestimated. Is like, it's not about resources, just resources. It's also about the framework in which you can become active in the market.
Mhm.
If your ownership group is fine with going, you have this budget, get whoever,
Mm-hmm.
then that is very different than you have this budget.
This budget.
You
we
can
need-
only look here.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
I
Okay.
trust those limitations in an even with certain, fringe cases set aside. I trust that in an unproven like gatekeeper than I would with the Boston Uprising at this point.
You just don't like
It
Hug, do
is
you?
I don't want them to be poor, but it's consistently like ass backwards. Like we said, Krusty's
I'm
gone,
gonna-
Striker's
Right.
gone,
Right.
Gunba's gone. Who
Right.
else? Name them. Yeah, Jerry's
They
been
lost
a
the
great
Vast.
piece.
They lost the best main support we've ever seen in this game, and they just let him ride on the bench until he became absolutely worthless. What
All
they
right,
did to
that's
him.
the end of the show. We're done. We're getting out of here. No. Man.
Tridd wide in the chat.
Say that 3 times and it ends every podcast worldwide.
All
I
right, I need
just-
to know how to get out of a difficult question then.
yeah. I don't know with Boston. I want them to be different. I don't want bad teams in the league. I
But-
want
but,
a
okay.
competitive week.
Joe, you got to explain to me how this
Okay.
is. Okay.
Yeah.
What is the entity
Yep.
that what's the cruise ship anchor that weighs this team down? Because I don't think a general manager can have that influence on a franchise to that point. We've fired everyone that has anything to do on this roster now. Why would it maintain the same properties going into the next season?
I don't know. Why did it do it the same way last season? Why did they do it the same way before? There's only one person that seems to remain constant.
Say
Stu,
Wolf?
Yes,
get him
but-
out. Get him out.
Do you think Hug literally body checks into people and says, "Let me pray, I'm still in my prime in gaming," or
No, I don't. But
He does it with the coaching, apparently.
that's the only thing I can That's the only thing I can point to and say you're the decision maker. You're the only person that has remained a consistent thread throughout all the 3 of these years, and we're still doing it in a very interesting way. I'm
not saying that there's not a trend established that
Okay.
the presence of Huck might be making, or that Huck might be making worse choices than others in building
Sure.
that. We also don't know the resources there. I'm just talking from the information that we have, disregarding everything. We also have to kind of consider that they actually did quite well with him there. Of course, if you want to give 99% to Krusty, be my guest that you can do that,
I think I would.
right?
Sign me up, coach.
I'm usually on your side with this thing, but I wouldn't give 99% to him. I think a quick caveat to add into this is the only person that Huck answers to is someone in the Kraft company. So he's not answering directly to Robert Kraft. It's probably some
Right.
senior vice president of marketing or product or something, right?
Sure.
Or teams. What is the measurement of success they are weighing against Huck? Okay, is it create a skeleton organization or a sock puppet team that survives long enough for you to start filling seats at a homestand? Is it to create an Overwatch League winning roster? Is it to sell players for profit, become a scouting ground and moneyball the shit out of this for some kind of sale profit? What is the objective that Huck
Right.
is measured against by the people that matter
100%.
to his
Correct.
hiring decisions?
Yep.
We do not know that. We can take guesses, we can speculate it, but
Yep.
by the fact that he has 3 years, probably a 4th in the bag in his position,
Right.
he is doing something right to the people that
Correct.
matter.
Oh, 100%. I can't argue with that. I think he's done a great job if his primary directive is to build a bazaar where you recruit the best of the best and then you sell them at 300% profit.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
I mean, I've
from
said
my
this.
perspective, I don't particularly care for it, and I think people are getting real.
I
over it.
still to this day think the Boston Uprising are top 3rd in Overwatch League in money in, money out.
Oh, for sure.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I'd probably put money on that.
They got in season 1, so they were already doing better than the season 2 teams, right?
They cashed it all in season 1,
fees were just lower in general.
Mm-hmm.
But like there is, unfortunately in sports, the only way to play the game is not win a championship. That's not the only way to play the game. Like I think in a perfect world, in a Yiskonian universe, there is a completely competitive league where the only thing that matters and the only incentive and the only thing that drives players and organizations and coaches and everything else is just win a championship.
Right.
I'm not saying that any player playing wants to lose. I think especially on
100%.
players that is false, but I think on organizations and teams, there is a maximization of effort of money in, money out. Where you have to look and go. And it's funny because I actually watched Moneyball came on Netflix this last week. And so I rewatched Moneyball.
Film. It's a great film.
It's so good, dude. Man, what Jonah Hill has done for himself. Amazing.
Now, to be fair with Boston, you have to give them at least some credit for the players that they have scouted, the players that they have kind of acquired. They do a good job there.
Yeah.
It's just translating that into some form of like relative success where there are teams that do or have adopted the same strategy you have, arguably to a lesser extent in some areas. I think there are some teams that probably have adopted this Moneyball strategy and have, not procured the same level of talent, but still perform better. So it's bringing that bar chart to kind of use that, framework that we tend to go to, bringing that up a level and saying, okay, well, how can we still maximize our profits and maximize, the acquisitions and still be competitive? Because this team has not been competitive.
Stage 4, season 1.
It's so frustrating.
Is it stage 4 or is it stage 3? They had one good stage in season 1.
Stage 3, I think they did the.
Yeah, and then
stage. Yeah.
It was after the DK stage. Actually, they lost DK. We're like, well, there goes the Uprising, and then
Krusty, meaning.
So just to clarify, that's
Dreamcast left season 2.
I was going to say because you're saying DK and people associate it with the player that's on the Justice.
It's a hard avoid.
Sorry. I just some people are really weird about it's like Volamel.
Yeah, I understand it, but I think you should just clarify that because people are like, "What the fuck, DK is from Boston?"
I don't think that was really the patch. Like it was literally. I think Krusty started in stage 4 for the shock, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I think that's the clear breaking point, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say so.
Krusty started 10/26/2017. No, that's
for the.
He left. He left.
Yeah.
You're saying he? Yeah, got it. Okay, sorry. I thought you were saying he started for the Uprising in stage 4. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm with you. We're good. We're on the same page.
Right. And then to be fair, there was also a meta switch back then.
Yes.
Right. So that
you're leaning
adds
hard.
some volatility there.
Yep.
So, I mean, Jesus Christ, 3 years in esports is crazy long ago. Okay, and then
blame the meta. Let's go.
It's hard to judge all of that. I think you can look at those results and say, okay, this is kind of problematic. Boarding, now firmly being the worst franchise in. Are they?
I believe they are. No, I don't believe anybody.
Florida's turned it around. Shanghai turned it around.
Is it Houston, guys?
No, Houston
they had
finished above them.
You forget Houston in stage 1 of season 1, okay, where they went.
Hey, if we have to pinpoint a singular stage or anything to indicate success,
It's a throwback to, we had a really angry email on this show early on where we rated Houston relatively lowly, and like, did you not watch season 1, stage 1 semifinals where the only 3 teams made it, and Houston was one of those teams, and they lost.
Oh yeah, because they were still sorting out like the preseason stuff.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a.
It has to be the Justice being the worst by win rate, right?
Yeah. If you're going specifically win rate,
but it's also an expansion team.
Boston and Houston have had the longest run because they've been here since season 1, whereas Justice did not.
Right. And then it might still be Fuel.
No, Boston. I think Boston on average has finished lower than both of those teams highlighted across.
If you
Boston finished like heavy ahead of.
No.
If you honestly though, like I'm gonna diverge a little bit. If you say now, which of the original 12 teams is the worst team in Overwatch League right now, just overall, taking everything into account?
You're saying right
money
now,
in,
though.
money
You're
out.
saying right
I am,
now,
but I'm just saying I think it would be the Dallas Fuel for me.
Worst team, money in, money out. I mean,
you're saying money in, money out, right? Okay, so now we're talking about the cost of it.
I'm saying everything. You take everything. You have a giant Moneyball spreadsheet.
But there's so many different things to consider there, though. Because like,
I think they're up there. I don't know.
Like, the other thing is, like, in terms of building brands, like Fuel and Houston have been 2 of the strongest in terms of the fan base they've generated. That's another metric of success. I think that overall, if you weigh everything up, the most underperformed from all these different metrics we want to consider about what makes an Overwatch League franchise, I would still give it to Boston. I don't think Boston has done enough performance-wise. I think the money in, money out is the big ticket winner there on the big pro column. Yeah. I think the content was
season 1, a 5th place finish?
Third place in the regular season. That's my point. I don't think there's any way that Boston is worse than Dallas.
Yeah, you're right, 3rd. Yeah, sorry, I missed. A 3rd place finish in season 1.
Boston was like 3rd, and
it depends on how much we respect season 1 just in general, right?
I mean, if you're just tallying them up, I'd be surprised. I would be shocked to see that Fuel's like low mid pack performance season 2, like pretty piss poor performance season 1, and then a pretty low performance beats 1 good performance, and then 2 like bottom performances.
All right, I'm sorry I brought us down there. Like it was just kind of like a random thing.
I think it's a fun conversation.
It's the interesting thing is it's not either of the team. It's not any of the teams that have had like 20th place seasons. It's a team that's consistently underperformed expectations. It's a team that has consistently scored poorly overall in the season, and a team overall that has kind of had a lot of like controversy and turnover around them. And like that's the Dallas Fuel. I think that going into right now today, if you ask me what is the least healthy franchise in the Overwatch League, I'm hard to say it's not the Dallas. It's hard for me to say it's not the Dallas Fuel.
Yeah. You've sold me. Next time someone asks me that question, I'm gonna be like, you know what? Fuck the Dallas Fuel. That's gonna be my answer.
Yeah. Now, I think it would be remiss if we didn't kind of touch on. I wanted to kind of transition when we were on London, but hard swapping.
Okay.
Do we want to talk about Noukky as new GM? Where the direction is?
Yes, we do. And Noukky's on the show next week, right?
She should be, as long as we confirm their dates, Mr. German.
Oh,
give me them dates, and then we can have a hard and fast confirmed day. But
well, I might have even said on Twitter that we confirmed her for next week.
We have it penciled in.
I'm 33 years old and single. I'm not great at dating, dude.
It's called iPal, dude. Get it together. All right, let's talk about the Spitfire. So, brand new GM, Noukky coming in. On the heels of me mentioning her 2 weeks ago.
Very clairvoyant.
Oh, you're declaring yourself a prophet now, are we? Okay.
To be fair, I think all 3 of us on the show have been super duper rooting for Noukky for years. It feels like on this one. So I am so happy with this new GM signing. I'm I've immediately like I feel like I'm like bookmarking the Overwatch League store for Spitfire merch at this point. I'm all about it. I think it's awesome.
Right.
I think it's a tough decision. I think the one in Spitfire last year, if we look at them, I think that there was some really interesting things about that roster and franchise to really like, and I think we're looking right now, and I think everybody's gone.
No,
Not
everyone. They've still retained.
They've got
Glister.
the people who you'd think you'd retain. I think
Yes,
Glister is
yes.
still there. Sanguinar
Okay.
is still there.
So Fuse.
At least technically for right now. We have, I think, a date coming up that will probably clarify that.
Here's the thing about that, right? If you're gonna completely redesign your house, right? You know, you walk into your house and you've got like some nice artwork on the walls and it looks pretty. You like it. You have some sentimental value to it, right? But you're like completely renovating everything. You're like changing the floor plan. You're knocking down walls. You're putting up features and all sorts. And then when you do that, it's like you realize that while that artwork's really good, it got a lot of compliments. It's a bit of a draw. It doesn't have relevancy in the new floor plan, and so you have to kind of like figure out what you want to do. The players, they're not getting rid of the players because they're bad. They just like getting rid of them because they just don't have relevancy. But if you've got like an original Jackson Pollock painting, you keep hold of that motherfucker until someone buys it, and that's what you're doing with Glister, Fuse. Forgetting Sanguinar still on the roster. Yeah.
Bernard is technically still there as well.
Yeah.
So sorry, I should have declared those comments were based off of the Kevin Hitt article from Esports Observer, but nothing official. There's still rumors.
They've announced a load of departures.
Yeah, they've announced a lot of departures. I think the messaging from Noukky was very obviously to that, like that we're not going to see a hybrid roster probably. I think that was all but spelled out. There was also a podcast after that I only caught like half of. I'm pretty sure like this is happening, right?
Yes.
But these are also great like trading chips in the market if you want to get like players there, right? So
it's not even about the trading chips as well. It's also about like the sale value of these. It's like the worst possible outcome is that no one wants to pay the money, and we see these players ride the bench next year. That's the worst possible outcome for everyone.
Yes. Yeah, that's it's an interesting like chess play where it's like, okay, let's think about this, right? What's the JMac thing about? Like, I don't understand. There's three things, but because JMac is out, right?
Okay, yeah, so I need you to definitely elaborate on that for anybody who's not up to date. Yeah.
Right. So Spitfire announces, I believe it was 7 players that were going to leave the organization. Notably absent were like Burna, Glister, Fuse, Sanguinar, and JMac. Then first JMac makes like a tweet. Okay, I'm not concerned. London is looking out for me. Now he has announced free agency, and I'm wondering what that means. Does that mean has he been picked up? Has he been not re-signed? Has he requested to be let go from a contract or whatever so he can pursue the transfer season without a buyout? What's that about? Like, what is happening there? I'm interested. Right?
So we have the official London tweet, right? About JMac, which is today we have another tough announcement. We're releasing JMac from the Spitfire.
Sure.
Yeah. So a release without a buyout is often weird, but it is possible that release is tied to a deal. Obviously, the other team is just not in a position to announce it yet. That's option one, right? And that's the best option for everyone because it means he's got a new home. It's a transition to a player. Someone's picked up a player. The other option is that like maybe Spitfire don't like their chances of like getting JMac on a resale value, and so they release JMac mutually so they don't have to pay him his salary, and he goes elsewhere and tries as a free agent instead. It means he doesn't ride the bench. That's the benefit for JMac, and the benefit for Spitfire is they don't have to pay his salary regardless of what happens. Right. So I think option 2 is the most likely thing that's happened here. They've mutually agreed because Spitfire don't think they're going to get a buyout for JMac.
I think
Right.
that's the looking out for, is like they could easily hold him until I think the next date is like confirmed free agency, where it's like you have to like declare that your players are or are not on contract. Maybe I'm misremembering.
They would have to
dates.
be decided now. That's the pressing issue. That JMac was signed in 2019. That date has passed,
Mhm.
where you would have to trigger that +1.
They just don't
Also-
understand the Jiminy McMacaroons alliterations. I think is what it really comes down to. They don't understand social media and memes.
Like, I don't know. This is it's hard for me to decipher. I think there's other possibilities. What might be going on there? But that's an interesting one, and it also has possible implications for the rest of the members. I feel, where it's like, I don't know if I mean it's more likely that you're going to sell all 4 of those. I also think JMac was actually considered quite contested.
Highly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was bizarre, that I'm still like kind of scratching my head on.
So I do want to say something, because Eric did clarify for us. 2020 PSA contracts would have to be decided. 2019 PSA contract deadline for
option
decisions is November 13th.
It's the other way around. If I right,
apparently not.
Keep going. I'm looking.
I don't know, but I think obviously it's been quite clear from the messaging we've got from Spitfire so far that we shouldn't expect a Korean roster. We should expect a European roster, or at the bare minimum, a Western roster. So that the as soon as I read that, the knee jerk chimp brain reaction was Hurricane to Owl. Hurricane to Owl. It's happening, boys. That would probably win a lot of like good sentiment in the community, and like obviously, you know, do you want to strip it down and be really cynical? Noukky just goes, cool, Hurricane GM, Spitfire GM, Hurricane team, Spitfire team, and just migrate everything across. I don't think that is what's going to happen, though. I think that if you put Hurricane in Owl right now, you may end up with something reminiscent of Teen Titans. That is not, I think they would perform a little bit better than the Vancouver Teen Titans.
Okay.
But I mean,
like the name, by the way.
Teen Titans, yeah, Teen Titans on like the actual like entry point when they started versus Hurricane when they start. I think Hurricane beats them in a straight head to head, without a doubt. How they fare up against the rest of the league, I think they would still struggle. Is that what you want from your roster? Or do you want something that's going to be a little bit more competitive? I think with the options available to you with European players, I think you can make something that's built to last and not ride on that initial success of pre-existing synergy. I think that you can make investments here for the future, offer the European free agents that aren't just picking up the entirety of Hurricane.
Yep. I think I'd agree with most of the sentiment. I think I think the upside here, and I think the best case scenario is probably to look at this team moving forward almost like a Valiant coming into this season, where it's like probably it looks on paper to be almost a bottom 5, or like maybe, you know, there's some, you know, rookie European players that come in and, you know, are gems that we don't know about, which hopefully Tridd can, you know, drop some juice on. But I think that this team will be judged as a bottom 5 team because of, you know, lackluster names, not a big picture, you know, it's not Hurricane completely, so people get big mad. And I think they're going to perform above. We'll have to see. I think I think from starting from the top with Noukky and working my way down, I think I'm going to like slowly love the roster. It'll just take time, and it's not going to be the best team. And she's very clear in saying that, like, we're probably not going to be top 5 guys. I think I love everything what they're doing so far. Her at GM, she's done well. She's obviously created a winning, you know, model with Hurricane.
Yeah, the winning model with Hurricane in Europe right now is called money.
So can we? Can we take a brief moment though and talk about Noukky, because Noukky is coming into a pretty exclusive club for Overwatch League, and that is our third female GM. We had Kate, Kate Mitchell. We had Annalyn Dang, and now we've got Noukky. And this has been really tough. Each of them have so far. Kate and Ballin have Susie.
You forget, Susie. Susie Kim was
Susie
GM.
Kim.
Oh yeah, you're right, Susie Kim.
Ooh.
I apologize. So, but the Annalyn.
Let me save you.
Yeah.
The pattern is Washington Justice there, not necessarily the profile of.
Yes.
Because Susie won a Overwatch League, right?
Because what?
Susie, wait, was Susie Kim GM of Spitfire when Spitfire won?
I think she might have quit shortly before, and Robin was already. No. I think Susie was actually
still...
I remember writing an article about Prophet wanting to wax lyrically after, and then I had to communicate with Susie for that. Might have been maybe. No, I think she was.
She left 2019 6/14.
Yeah, Stylos is in chat saying she was S1 GM, replaced by Bishop. Lol.
So technically, Susie Kim is one of the most successful GMs Overwatch League has ever seen.
There you go.
Sure.
So, but all I have to say that it's still a very exclusive club.
One and done, boys. There it is. Wrap it up.
four GMs in total in Overwatch League, over 20 teams over 3 years. And none of them currently are in that GMing spot except for Noukky. I know I think I can speak for Joe, Yiska, and I think we are really excited to see Noukky go. But I would love to hear your guys' confidence in I think why Noukky is such a great GM. Obviously, you could almost stop at British Hurricane in a lot of ways.
I have to play devil's advocate massively on that. I will start before I say everything here. Massive fan of Noukky, right? Yeah. I'm just doing this purposely to put some brakes on the hype train of Hurricane.
Right. Totally,
because they are absolutely they've been dominant. Their record speaks for themselves. Performance speaks for themselves.
Right.
Everything like that. How much can you attest to? So this is the thing. Be really purposely obnoxious about this, right? How much success can you attribute to Noukky when they are one of the only organizations in Europe that pays a decent salary? They have a monopoly on European players because of it. They have had a consistently strong roster. They always seem to acquire coaches because they have resources. How much of that do you put on Noukky as just to be that slight little roadblock here? Because if, yet again, playing devil's advocate here, Noukky went into the role as, if I remember correctly, the manager of 1-2-3, which was a really strong Overwatch Contenders team pre the formation of 2018 Contenders. Spitfire came in, wanted to pick up the whole roster, picked up Noukky in a package deal. Noukky then became manager of Hurricane, is my understanding of the situation.
I don't have that for Liquipedia, by the way. So if you are a Liquipedia editor and that is the case, I don't have her for 1-2-3.
I think it was,
Those guys. Yes, those guys. Sorry, I
it's been so long.
I hate because I honestly don't know. This is me literally just looking at a webpage. Sorry, continue.
Right. So you could sit here and cynically go, Noukky was attached to the roster. He may have built the roster, went into her Hurricane position, and then continued on a path of resource and success in Europe unchallenged. In the modern day of Contenders, there was obviously 100%. Competition that came in through a lot more organizations in EU that we don't have now. But the thing that dismantles that and why you can clearly dispute it is why in the hell would Cloud9 go, okay, we don't want you to just do Hurricane. We want you to do Cloud9. We're going to put the resources in to visa you to come work in the States, be our manager, manage multiple teams. You're also going to be a central point of contact for boot camp when it comes to World Championship with the successful League of Legends team. This is a coach that this is a manager that the organization has an abundance of confidence in. And with the endemic background that comes from Noukky's existence and proximity to the scene.
Right.
This is a GM that will have a lot of high expectations for, and they are rightly placed upon them. It comes down to the Huck thing, though. What is the objective?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we know
What
that.
is the
right?
objective? Do we?
I think she's
Yeah, we have.
she's
Clear-
sort
very
of spelled
clearly-
it out.
Yeah.
Very clearly,
she's like-
no, she's very clearly said Western team, right? Very
Right.
clearly
She's
said
very
that.
also clearly said that they're probably not going to win.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Fine.
Like she's jumping ahead of
Okay. That's fine.
Sure.
That's setting expectations, right? But like, what is
Yeah.
the goal of the team? What's the goal of
Hard- yeah.
Noukky? Shall we say more accurately?
I think we have that already. I
Okay.
think the point, like in the announcement video, and maybe I'm mixing it up with the podcast I watched after, but the message that I received, and I might be wrong here, but
Mhm.
is to help the European scene and activate European fan base that way.
Okay.
That's why also, and that's also another thing that speaks for Noukky, I think, is why they are keeping Hurricane around. Now, keep in mind, think of this, right? It would be easy for a GM to say, I'm scraping the academy team. I'm firing all the coaches that are receiving livable wages right now, scrapping all the players that are receiving these wages, and I'm putting that on my budget for my Overwatch League team in order to achieve more. That's not what Spitfire is doing, though. Like, they explicitly said, we're going to keep Hurricane around. We want to connect these two teams with one another to strengthen whatever's going on in the European scene and help out in that way, right?
Mhm.
And while as a general manager, you can never implicitly say for us it's about like development of European talent and or like having European fans engage with us, and we don't care about competitive results. And I don't think that's true. It's definitely not. It's. I get the feeling that this is down the priority list.
Yeah, you think it's like a
considerably.
lower priority to like perform extremely well. I don't think, like to what you're saying, I don't think the idea is to underperform purposefully.
Yes.
But with the directive that she's been given, the messaging thus far has leaned more towards supportive, not being the best, being good enough, representing the region well.
Operating within the
can't-
means and outperforming whenever possible.
I can't
The LA Valiant.
from pure cynicism. I can't take altruism as the main objective here.
That's-
I
of course not.
can't.
True.
I
No.
can't take the decisions as we're doing this to benefit EU. There is an angle here that's not implicitly being said. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I know an angle being taken usually has negative connotations. There is nothing
Right.
wrong with that, but I can't take altruism as the main objective here.
I mean,
I'm-
there's no true
yeah.
altruism.
And
in
I'm
the
sorry,
first
I'm
place,
sorry,
but-
I misunderstood what the point was there. Because I came
So-
across very, very preachy. Is like we're doing this to build up EU,
Right,
save the
Yeah.
region. Like that cannot be the main reason.
Tactical Crouch Saves EU is actually the podcast title. And
Is it?
yep, that's going to be it for this
Why am
one.
I here? I'm not gonna help you save EU.
So I do want to just make sure I walk back and say my excitement for Noukky. I think she's a phenomenal human being, and I think she's going to make a f***ing kick-ass manager, GM. I think she's going to be amazing at it. But that is not directly tied to whatever the 2021 season standings might say. I believe and trust in Noukky to field the best team that she can, and to achieve great results, and to do so in a way that is like, man, it's just like with integrity. Like it's such a weird thing to say, but like, you know, like I've known Noukky totally randomly because like I think the history probably should be said here in the sense that when I was doing Overwatch League daily, I had asked a lot of people involved in the Overwatch scene to like come onto the show and be a guest, and almost all of them did. And Yiska was one of the few people who like, you know what, I want to send you to a Discord server that we're all in, and we'll help you come up with questions, help you make better shows, and just ultimately just like be friends. And ever since that moment, like there's and Noukky and I, like, I wish I could say like, oh, we're really close, we're best friends.
Yeah.
We're not. We're not really close. We're not best friends.
Mhm.
I love her. I think that she's an amazing human being. But man, just getting to watch somebody from that point where that was pre any of these teams at all, and just kind of somebody who is, I feel like, adminning tournaments.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I would be
Admin
correct in that one.
tournaments. Yep. Yep. The tournament admin. Yep.
And
She, if I remember correctly, she was also a part of some of the early Take TV stuff
Take
as well.
TV
She was on
broad,
hand
yep.
for like
Take
Takeover.
TV.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wearing many
Did
hats.
observing there. Yeah.
Just
Yep.
and like, here's the thing is like, my favorite people in just honestly any sort of like discipline is just like hard worker.
Right.
I think that's Noukky in a nutshell, and I think that's somebody that Overwatch League needs in the GM role, just in general across all 20 franchises, and I think that they really nailed it with Noukky. I have like the utmost confidence that she's going to be awesome. So I want to say, I'm not trying to paint an unnecessary portrait. I'm not trying to put any sort of expectations on her to achieve certain results. I just like, I think it's a little bit of a fanboy moment where I'm just like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's get it done. It feels good to see the right person in the right role sometimes. And I feel like it's the right person in the right role.
Yep. Yeah.
You just need, like, this is what you need the most, and it's what a lot of esports positions, not just in Overwatch, are like missing. You just need endemic people who aren't. Wait 1 second before I finish this. If I raise my finger, can you beep me? Is that something you can do?
I can beep
on
you.
your end.
Yep, I got you.
Yeah. Okay. So when I raise my finger, you just beep me, and I'll save you the edit. So when it comes to this, just in esports, you need people who are endemic, and they are not fucking charlatans. Is that time? Did it work properly?
I think we'll find out.
We'll see.
We'll find out the edit.
We tried.
We'll see how it worked.
Yeah, we'll see how it works. But anyway, you just need people who aren't charlatans. You need people who know what they're talking about. You need endemic people. Noukky ticks those 2 boxes.
I totally agree. Like, I think the value of you already, when you started with this and saying like the industry needs more endemic, it's already won in my book. This is already true everywhere.
Please,
right?
I need
Capable
somebody
people
from
with-
Major League Baseball to tell me how to stream on Twitch.
I think they'll put it the best.
Bro.
Joe Sports Ball number $3,000. You know, 400. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
All
right.
right.
I like
Tweet
that.
by the way. But
So
real quick, just on
let's
this,
do it.
the beauty of the approach that C9 as an organization, I sense this a little bit because Noukky also said that sure, transparency is very important. I feel like when we also look at the Cloud9 CSGO roster, we are going to get clarity and transparency about what the goals are. Most definitely, we'll probably like going to find out on Crouch on that day.
I mean, that's a wish list for you, right? Like,
Oh, for sure.
yeah. I have to touch with a little bit. This is why I'm going to be doing a little bit more cynicism to this one. I think the rules of engagement for what you disclose in CS:GO are very different to Overwatch League.
Oh, for
I
sure.
think
Yeah.
I don't think we can get that level of transparency.
Not that.
I don't
but
think that's
we
what
can
he's-
talk about realistic goals.
Yeah.
Like what is actually this team designed for? Why would you like competitively almost like tank yourself a little bit, at least in the next season, by keeping Hurricane around and not using that budget in order to get better players, better coaches, more of everything. Like what is the conception here, and what are the goals that you're trying to follow? And I think to a decent degree, these answers have already been given, but I won't speak for her here because like I would probably just fail to deliver the details. But
I want to cut this here because I feel like, honestly, with this group dynamic, man, we just need to reschedule Tridd, I think, and just go through some more of these because this has been so much fun. But I know we did have some specific questions lined up for Tridd about the EU region, and just kind of, I think, Contenders EU in general and everything else. And I think Joe and Yiska, I'm going to let you kind of take the reins on that. because I know that you guys spent a lot of times on the questions. So
Yeah, I think it's just more of with the, you know, the time we've got left. It's just kind of, first I'd like to start with like a general temperature check on like give me like a, as probably difficult as it is, a TLDR of Contenders EU for, let's just say, this season. Like, what are some of the big storylines? What are some things that have kind of captured your heart in that way, other than Hurricane winning everything?
Okay, so this just makes my life easier because it means I don't have to expand on my notes. I could just read the bullet points. We have to keep it brief. Hurricane, yeah, don't need to say anything about them. Results speak for themselves. We already touched on it briefly. I think that like so this is a fun fact anyway. This month anyway is the first time we've actually seen the repeat 8 teams in a contenders bracket. So like the teams who got knocked into trials last month, they are back because they came through trials.
Interesting.
I think that like for this month in particular, for me anyway, all eyes are on Yab, right? Yab have just put together like a really good team, and they screwed the pooch last month. They did not live up to expectations. Whereas I think if you look at this month with a little bit more time with the roster, I think that we're going to end up having like a better showing from this month. I don't think they're a hurricane killer just yet, but I think they can make a good run. I think another team to keep an eye out for would be Sheer Cold. I think they're a little bit of a dark horse. They're not like, they don't have star power on there.
Okay.
But I think particular players from that roster that have stood out to me for the past couple of months have been Greffen, who's who the most notable performance they would have been on the Irish World Cup team. And then also Alex as well, who's a fantastic off tank. I have a lot of time for that kid. So I think, yeah, teams to watch this month. If you just coming into it blind, Hurricane, they're probably going to win. Doesn't really matter. That's a given. Right. It's a battle for second place. Yab should improve. Sheer Cold are a dark horse, and Obey Alliance have actually been pretty solid as well. So a couple of teams.
Okay, so there's a team that definitely has avoided that list, and that's Avoided.
Yeah.
I didn't actually mean to do that, but I'm kind of
I can see the disgust on Yiska's face.
This is where I just hate that John is not here, because you deserve to be.
I would get sure. Boom.
Yes. Be my sound, and everything.
Be my soundtrack. That's fine. So how has this team dodged that list when they've taken Hurricane so close within this last tournament? Is there something that was, you can write them off by, or are they not like looking as good in, the next meta? Where's that sit?
Avoided are always tough to kind of like diagnose, right? They're a team that thrives on chaos. There's just like so much stuff going on. Like you interview players after facing Avoided. Like I think I spoke to Danid after the Hurricane final where they got taken to 5 maps. It's the first time we've actually seen them struggle.
Yeah.
There's so much going on. You've got Bull, you've got Tracer running at you. Like you have to deal with that. On top of that, you then have Yizen just living like an AC 130 in the sky. There is too much to download, digest, and adapt to, and a team that's not as kind of rehearsed and as prepped as Hurricane falter. They fall by the wayside. It's a little bit of a Clockwork Vendetta paradox here, where it's like you have to be in a certain mindset. You have to prep for that team, which is ironic because they allegedly don't do any prep at all. But like they're so different to how everyone else plays. You kind of like write them off because do you play for the one match or do you play for the tournament, right? If that was the Clockwork Vendetta problem, and there's an element of that with Avoided. I feel as though like the more chaotic it is, read between the lines, the proximity to patch change to Contenders tournament there is, Avoided do better. We have a little bit more lead time. I don't know. I mean, I might get in trouble for saying this. We're going to be playing on Soldier Patch for this tournament. I don't know if that's come out. So we're playing with the slightly changed legs. I don't necessarily think that that's like a chaotic enough change to throw that imbalance we would usually see. So I think that like, yeah, I don't think that we're going to see a stronger Avoided this tournament run around.
Fair enough. Now, we have seen AT, be the maddest of lads, the angriest of titans, returning with a bit of a vengeance, and one name really does stand out as somebody who's kind of come back and somebody that definitely Overwatch League adjacent fans are going to be happy to hear from, and that's Visibility. So like looking at maybe some of the VODs that you've seen, where do we sit with the Facilities? Is he as are the stocks as high as he or as they were when he left? Is this somebody that you could see tap to maybe at least trial for this new London rebuild, or maybe even possibly go to some of these other Moneyball teams that our favorite German juice lord so beautifully alluded to?
That means a different thing to different people, by the way.
Oh, it does. That's
I think so. First of all, the funniest thing about Facility coming back was his like announcement coincided with the kneecapping of one of his signature heroes. So like Genji got nerfed and then Facility came back. It's like, great, what a time to pick a champ. I think that like this is going to be a really obscure kind of like a metaphor for it, but like here's how I see the Facility thing happening. So in the desert, in like the African desert, like there's not really much water. I can see you already rubbing your temple.
Paint me my picture.
Paint you the picture. So in the African desert, imagine you're a tribesman walking through the desert. There's no water. You're drowning. You're not drowning. You're dying of thirst, right? And you need to find a water source, but they're so obscure. You're not really going to be able to find it, right? So along comes it. You have to realize you have to capture a player of great caliber who's going to lead you to that water source. So you put a little, you etch a hole into like a little rock. You put some seeds, some nuts in there, and Facility, who is a bit of a chimpanzee, a baboon, if you will, comes forward and he wants those nuts and seeds. He puts his hand in, he clenches to get hold of them, right? But now he can't get his fist out. He's locked in the contenders system. So you as the tribesman, what do? You go ahead and you leash that monkey, because that monkey's going to be your ticket out of there. Your monkey's going to be the ticket to success. You feed him a bunch of salt. You feed him everything you want, right? And eventually he's going to get thirsty. He's going to want a taste of victory. So what is he going to do? He's going to lead you straight to victory. That is the ambition with this little baboon Facility. He's going to lead you to victory. But unfortunately, and the reality of the situation is you're going to get to the watering hole, and the watering hole is tainted because all the other monkeys on that roster have been pissing and shitting. So basically, Facility is the star baboon of this roster, but the roster is not good enough to keep up. I think that with time they can get better, but I don't like the AT stonks right now, and I think Facility could do better much better on a more stable roster.
Yiska, you just lost your award for best podcast metaphor.
That one's up there. That was a picture painted.
It's number one. It's not up there. It's number one.
Also, Facility, maybe don't let people take pictures of you when you're writing DMs, dude.
What happened?
Just saying. Nobody caught it, but
I'll let him explain after. But there are some awards that I would like you to give out. Some that I think you'll have a bit of fun with if the Facility explanation was anything to go by. Who would be your 2020 regular season MVP coming out of Europe? Obviously, the season hasn't technically ended yet, but so far, do you have like a front runner that people should be kind of paying attention to and that probably will see in the Overwatch League next season?
Seeing in the Overwatch League next season is a difficult thing to call.
Okay, leaving that aside.
I can't associate that with the MVP straight up. Asking me to pick for an MVP out of Europe is just basically saying who's your favorite player on Hurricane. I think it's a disservice to give it to a player on any other team based off of the track record we've seen.
Who is though? Who's your favorite player on Hurricane?
That's the inclination I'm leaning towards is Molf. I'm a big Molf fan. It was a close second behind Ripper coming back to the roster, but I feel as though I have to kind of like take a few points off or give him the OWL handicap for having some of that playtime. I would go over with Molf. I think that I rarely see Molf put in a bad performance regardless of meta. I think he's thrived quite well. Obviously, he's had the D.Va in his back pocket for the longest time. I think that his Sigma was great when that was predominant. I think if you need to flex him onto anything else, he's going to be a great answer for you. because I look at the other members of Hurricane, and you have to judge them with a higher caliber because of the results they pull in as a team. And every other member, apart from Ripper and Molf, I can look at and go, "What are you doing, man? You had a bad game there. You literally got carried because you're on Hurricane in that particular instance. It doesn't happen a lot, but it still happens." So for me, my regular season MVP at present, barring some amazing pop off this month or whatever postseason Blizzard decides to throw at us, if they do at all, I'd probably be looking at giving it to Molf.
Okay. Just got thoughts? Does that surprise you?
I mean,
Molf? Definitely
it's
somebody I've heard
surprising
good
to me.
things from.
I mean, okay. It's surprising to me. Okay, how do I phrase this? It's not surprising necessarily that there's something else being said about the possible MVPs on that roster. And I also now understand why you prefaced it as like who's going to OWL. That being like an exclusion or not necessarily correlated.
Yeah.
Because there's one name on Hurricane that I hear way more brought up in terms of like this kid is 100% going to be in OWL, which then I extrapolated to
MVP. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
this guy must be MVP, having watched barely no European contenders this year, and that's Hardy.
Yes, Hardy is incredibly good. He is an incredibly good player. He has almost the level of consistency that I think Molf has. This guy is also a solo queue comp warrior, racking up obscene hours in just raw personal practice outside of the team environment. In terms of an OWL acquisition, you've got yourself a talented player who's a workhorse, right? Now, find him a team that's in need of a really solid main tank that can gel with the roster. You're onto a winner, right? Hattie is definitely a conversation for a potential OWL acquisition. The reason I didn't give him the MVP in this instance was because it's, like I said, very rarely does it happen. You see some Papige levels of play. If you're judging the performance of Hadi on another team where the bar isn't set so high, maybe he edges it out. I think that just like Molf and Ripper have been a little bit more consistent for me, and that was kind of like the key performance indicator on a team this good.
Right.
Interesting. I completely agree. He is absolutely a OWL candidate for next year, though.
Right. Is there a pattern to his Papageness? Where it's like, okay, it's always on Ryan or something like this.
I'm trying to think back to it. It's like I'm trying to think of a specific. This is the hard part. Thinking of the specific example of where it's going from. I might not be able to do it for you. I don't necessarily think there's a pattern to it. I can just remember walking away from a couple of maps going, man, if Hattie just did this, like they wouldn't have lost that. Or if Hattie did this, they wouldn't have like been taken to point B. Because a Hurricane loss is very rare, but a Hurricane loss comes off of mistakes, not the other team winning.
Right. And it hasn't happened in a hot minute, so.
Yeah, it hasn't happened recently. So you can argue on you can use the recency bias and go, yep, Hattie.
What's this 32? Oh, what was the streak?
Fuck. Sorry. When it was 26 before
Albion.
It was 26 before this previous September bracket. They played upper bracket round 1, so upper bracket round 1, quarterfinal, semifinal, grand final. So 30 consecutive matches.
Okay.
Zeister says 31 in chat. Do you want to argue
31
that?
then. He can take the 31. I don't care, right? It's after it hits 30, who cares? Like the stat I go back to is like they haven't lost a Path to Pro game since 18th of August 2019.
Okay.
They've lost.
Feels like
they've
6
lost
years ago, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, just like by COVID times, I just
they have lost a match outside of Path to Pro. I believe it was in EBC qualifiers to Sheer Cold. And and famously, Lusa on that team after winning the match tweeted out BAPDIF, and they got absolutely stomped in the rematch because it was double elim qualifiers. And ever since Lusa does anything, if he goes near BAP, people will spam BAPDIF, people will drop BAPDIF. He has basically made that into a catchphrase just by doing it once in a cocky moment of victory.
Right.
And thinking you've cracked beating Hurricane once is an achievement. Beating him again, okay,
Right.
you've made
Lightning in a bottle, baby.
Yeah, maybe gonna need a little bit more gas in the tank for that one.
Yeah, it is surprising that there's so much love going around Hottie, because this feels like the umpteenth Hurricane main tank that's like, hey, stamp of approval, Numlock, fusions. Now we're going to Hottie. It's like, as much as we can kind of caveat and, like you said earlier, like Devils are, advocate for this team and saying like, well, is it the strongest region? Well, they have the money. They constantly are getting and finding these players that, granted, I'm sure had careers before landing on Hurricane, but they're picking the right people. And I think that's very important. I think that's something that we have to kind of attribute to the coaching staff built, presumably by, the GM. To kind of wrap things up, as big of a question as this is going to be, I would kind of appreciate, and I think that people would love this, a first team EU contenders. So 3 DPS, 3 tanks split however you'd like, and 3 supports split however you'd like. Drop some names, doesn't have to necessarily, like you said, be owl ready or of age, but players to keep your eyes on.
And write a novel.
Right, no, okay. That'll have to come afterwards. You have to pay me for that as well.
In Yambic pentameter, please.
What?
That's we just ignore
That's
those
for
types
people
of
with an
comments.
education outside of the
Yeah, we
Anglophone world.
ignore those types of comments from Yiska. Yeah.
I'm working class, barely educated. I don't know how I get out of bed in the morning. Sorry, I would be the peasant knocking on your door begging for gruel around Christmas.
It's 7th grade.
Oh, great Lord, Yiska. The all EU team. A caveat that comes with it, because we love a caveat here. I've purposely tried to look outside the box of Hurricane, because the easy answer is to just go and say Hurricane plus friends, right? So there might be a little bit of people might say snubs. So I think for DPS, we are looking towards Danid. So there's your first Hurricane.
Okay.
And this is a controversial one because he's a one trick. Yezen. I think if you've got 3 DPS slots, bring on a specialist, right?
Okay.
And then Yikwid's. I think Yikwid's, despite everything, has had a pretty good year. I think he's one that
I have heard that name tossed around a little bit. I've heard some very good things.
And I think on the current iteration of Yab, with a little bit of prep time, could see him come into a greater performance. Tank. Let's get talking about tanks. Regardless of your comment, Yiska, there was already love for Hardy. He's in here. He would be my main tank pickup for this one, all right? Obviously, he's my MVP. He's going to be here as well. Molf's in there. Another one from the Yab roster, Vestola. I think Vestola has been really good. He was on the Yab roster for the longest time. He's not on anymore, sorry. But Vestola's been pretty fantastic. And I think that if you didn't have Haffy Cool as an option for Yab, Vestola would still be there. Because, well, it's Haffy, right? Support. Ripper. Okay. That's fine. Hampe from Avoided as well. I think Hampe's Ana has been absolutely fantastic. And I think when we've seen him flex off onto other things, he's been great. And then Khan, who was previously I'll Be the Best, who was previously something else. And I can't remember what that name is because it's been so long ago. But that would be my all EU roster if you took 9 players across all of the roles.
Well done.
But yeah.
Don't say what you're really thinking, though. You're just nodding and smiling.
Oh,
say it.
I'm getting exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking at, I haven't paid nearly enough attention to contenders across the board, let alone Europe. So this gives me a good, focal point to say, okay, these are the players that we could see. These are the players of the future. These are either the next generations or people that probably will see a call up either on the London Spitfire of 2021 or possibly, Valiant's looking for people. Who knows what Dallas is up to? Who knows what Houston's going to be up to? There's a number of teams that have just jettisoned their roster, and it's like, okay, we all know Europe's, got some gold. These sound like the players that might be
for this off season, we are officially declassifying the nature reserve of EU. It is open season. Grab your rifles, boys. It's time to go hunting. And the EU grounds are open. So no one is going to stop you. No one's going to do anything. I know how you Americans love to go and hunt random shit and don't care about nature, but right out here for you. Grab your rifles, grab your safari hat, bag yourself an EU player because Lord knows you need them.
True.
Oh, man.
True.
Oh, man.
What a way to end it.
What a way to end it. This is a fun show. Tridd, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Ton of fun.
No problem.
I know every guest that comes on, I'm like, oh man, we have to do this again sometime. Oh, thank you for being on. I'm like, I genuinely mean it when I say this is one of the funniest, most fun shows I've had in a long time.
Right.
So thank you so much for being on. Before we do get out of here, I want to give you the opportunity to give any shout outs, tell people where they can find you, anything else coming up in your schedule, all those types of things.
Cool. I guess the main place to go to is www.twitter.com/_Tridd. That's the main place you'll see me post about stuff. You mainly right now see a bunch of cooking stuff, food stuff. You could probably see a few things about contenders on the horizon. You'll probably see some stuff about Brawl Stars, which is the other esport I cover, and maybe a few things about my work. I work for a creative agency called Hot Drop, who are doing really cool things in the UK. So that's all my shout outs and that's all my plugs, and I'll make my boss happy.
There you go. Awesome. Joe, what about you, man? Shout outs to the league. Where can people find you?
On all the socials, you'll find me, if you want to. If not, that's cool too. Have an interview coming out, obviously, with the news with London. Spoke to Noukky, gonna have some comments with, first principles, little bit more nitty gritty. Got some extra stuff coming out, an interview hopefully with Valorant coming in later in the week, and yeah, just kind of touching on some of the storylines and some of the more pressing matters with the off season. So fun stuff. Stay tuned if you want.
And Yiska, before you fall asleep in your chair, what about you? Shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
I'm on vacation, baby. And
does that mean that we're playing Among Us after this, or does that mean you're going to bed?
Nah. My curfew has been extended by my legal guardian, which is myself.
What does that mean? Does that mean we're playing games?
We're playing games, and otherwise there's no content really coming out. Other than I promised it a little bit ago. I think I might just walk around woods tomorrow talking about esports, while an old lady comes along with her old dachshund and just looks at me awkwardly while I'm talking in English, and then maybe she can pick up a couple of English words, but then I'm saying stuff like I don't know, like bodying someone in a neutral, and then it's over, and there's no cognition there anymore, and it's just like I gotta get out of here and call the police.
Isn't Berlin?
Then I'm going to upload on YouTube.
Isn't Berlin kind of like the weird side of Germany? Am I misremembering that? Like how the question?
Berlin's a city. It's not a side.
Right.
Let's start there.
I mean, yes.
All right. Joe disconnected. I disconnected. We all disconnected. Did that really happen? Is that the type of timing that just happened? You guys can still hear me and see me, right? Yeah. All right. I have no idea what just happened. The Discord just froze, but we're still live. And I feel all right with that. Chat, thanks for hanging out with us. I hope you had a great one. Man, what a fun. These off-season shows are a ton of fun. We work really hard on bringing you an awesome show. And we're going to see if we can rejoin here. Doesn't look like it. If you like the show and want to support, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. If you aren't able or don't want to, whatever, and you're like, what are my free options? Just hanging out and chilling with us is great. But if you really want to support the show, if you go to Patreon, or not Patreon, if you go to iTunes, leave a 5-star iTunes review. We really appreciate it as well. Hey, welcome back.
There he is. He's back.
You're back.
What happened?
I was here the whole time. I was
Wait, how come
signing
all
off
three
the
of us
show.
are fine? All three of us were in this call and
whatever.
you weren't. So
I think because I'm hosting it, we're fine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's somebody else's fault. And
Discord. I'm gonna say Discord.
it was great because Joe is getting kind of sassy with me anyway. I'm glad that the universe shut that one down immediately.
It's true. Gotta put a collar on me.
As I was saying, if you like the show and you don't want to support via Patreon, go to iTunes and leave a 5-star iTunes review. It's totally free. Helps us kind of rise up in the rankings. Or leave a free Twitch Prime sub right here at twitch.tv/Kickedtripod. Big thank you to Chris R34444 for gifting a sub to Mitch, Stylosa, Bad Pachamari, and Blings. And big thanks to Porkchop Sammy and Loller Bear, sorry, that one was so hard to read, for the resubs. And a big thank you to our patron producers, Refine Bean, Ferdino Pin, Battle Crab, Gucci Kopi, Loshin, Rex Zane, Audio Compass, Kasha67, Sharp Picasso, Nathan Your Misery, Hunter Tane, Fabled Steven, Roger B, Owen, Chris R34444, Horbjorn, and I listen to this podcast whilst on the toilet and in the shower, thinking of Yiska and Peace Camper. We love you guys so much. This was a ton of fun. If you are still hanging out and you're like, I want to hang out and play games with you guys after, because apparently Yiska doesn't have a bedtime anymore, join us in Discord, discord.me/Yiska, Yiskaout. We're going to play some games, have a ton of fun. Thank you again, chat. Tridd, it's been an absolute pleasure, dude. Thanks again. We'll see you guys on Wednesday, I think, probably for a show. Love you all. Goodbye.